Hello, my name is Sarah Cha, and I'm going to share with you my child Naomi's school study, starting with prenatal. So first, the tragedy that my child was exposed to was illegal drugs and marijuana. This is because before I knew I was pregnant, I started using marijuana, but by the time I found out, it was a little late because I was addicted. Some of the impacts of this are low birth weight, prematurity, breathing difficulties, and even death, but there are also some long-term effects that could really affect the child. The way these could probably be avoided or even improved are first starting with early on in the pregnancy, by the mother avoiding stratagems and even considering their maternal factors such as like what they eat and their emotional stress. And then also their environment of the child when they grow up can help guide them to better their attention span, motor skills, and things like that. Pregnancy and childbirthing. So my child's grade is 6 on their APR score, which means that she's not in the healthiest physical condition, but she has a chance still to become healthier. I noticed that at 2 months old, my Naomi's motor skills started to show, especially during tummy time, because she would start to lift herself up and even learn to roll on her sides. So within the next month, I do expect to start seeing her grasp for objects. Early childhood. So Piaget's concept of adaptation consists of assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation is when the child is like observing surroundings, trying to understand what's going on, and then they take those interpretations or what they learn and try to use them in accommodation, where they take that information and try to like rearrange or recreate what they already know, so that they have a better understanding of the environment again. But these two things together also create cognitive equilibrium and cognitive disequilibrium. So equilibrium is when the child is assimilating far more than they are accommodating. In other words, they're just observing things a lot more and then also accommodating. Um, but then disequilibrium is when the child is just consistently accommodating. So they always recreate their understanding or change their understanding so that each time it's more accurate as to what the environment exhibits. I noticed this in Naomi, especially starting at her age of 2, because she has a yellow stuffed animal or a shrimp stuffed animal with a yellow cone, but she didn't know it was a trumpet. She thought it was a she thought it was a cup. But as I started playing more music around her, she recognized that the cup is not actually a cup; it's a trumpet, and shows this the most during her drawings. Assimilation first starting with her understanding as a cup, and then later on she learned that it's like a trumpet. So by accommodating, she drew it as a trumpet what it actually is. Early and middle childhood. So there are 3 stages of fine motor control. First one being scribbles. For the child's drawing, you don't really know what it is, but the child themselves actually know what they want it to represent. And then that leads to first representational forms. But the drawings are starting to take shape, you kind of have an idea what it is, but you don't really know, it's not too well accurate because it's simple forms. They're using shapes and lines to make it very simple. And then that leads to more realistic drawings. So where there are far more details to the drawing, such as like textures in 3D. And a line no longer is just one thing. A line or like drawings of an item have so much more details and aspects to it. This is Naomi's first representation of forms drawing. And I noticed because I saw that the figures on the left have lines for arms. And so it's a very simple form of like using one shape to represent an entire thing. And then this is Naomi's drawing of a more realistic Christmas later on as she got older. And I noticed because in the tree, it's not just simple shape with triangles and things like that. It actually has like zigzag lines, which represent texture in the tree. Education and cognitive development. So there are 4 educational philosophies. First, with traditional classrooms, where the students have set expectation and standards that they need to meet, and the teachers are there to pretty much guide them to that. And then there are constructivist classrooms where students are free to learn at their own pace, and the teachers are there to primarily like guide that thinking and process. And then there's social constructivist classrooms. So it's a large group of students and teachers, and all together they are working on challenges and activities. And then there's cooperative learning, where it's the same thing, except it's just smaller groups. I want Naomi to be in a constructivist classroom because I want her to be able to like learn at her own free will, at her own pace, and eventually develop her own like way of thinking, especially with thinking outside the box. Adolescence to adulthood. This is Erickson's theory, where people go through 8 stages, and they all face conflicts and a resolution that develop their personality and sense of identity. There are four identity statuses. First, with identity achievements, these are individuals who have ideas of their values and goals, but they are open to alternatives. And then there's identity moratoriums, where these are individuals who don't have an idea of what they want as their values and goals, but they are exploring and figuring that out. And then there is identity foreclosure, where these are individuals who have a set plan of what they want as their values and goals, and they have no intention of achieving them at all. And then there is identity confusion. These are individuals who have no values, have no goals, and they put little to no effort into actually figuring those out. Unfortunately, my Naomi had to face identity foreclosure. She had a whole set plan, especially her class schedule, but as she went to college and she discovered all her classmates like changing their majors, changing classes, and going to different clubs, she felt the need that she needed to change too. But later on, she did figure it out. She talked to many people and their experiences about what they did, what they experienced, and eventually she realized she just needed to relax. Relax. These are some facts about my Naomi, especially during her milestones. A lot of this consists of like how she grew up, the things she probably would experience, things like that. My child's report card. So a lot of these are pretty much just what I already went over, with like her AP car score, her religions, and her motor skills. But there are some little facts here, like her favorite color is blue. And she started walking at 10 months. This is also more information that I went over, but one wish I do have for her is to have empathy. And yeah. And then this is my child, Melanie, and she was 4 years old. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.